Hey everyone, welcome to Adobe Live. I'm Elizé, an Adobe XD Enterprise instructor, and I'm here with the very talented Jill Rosenberg. She's going to be designing a dog parent app. This is day 2. We got some screens in yesterday. We're going to flesh them out a bit more today. Excited to see some of you in the chat. Hello, Stony. Hi, Voodoo Val. And before we get started, let's talk about Daily Creative Challenge. That's happening today at 2 o'clock. Right after this stream, there's a replay happening. And if you guys haven't done it before, I highly recommend it. This is a 10-day challenge where you get to flex your skills as a designer and you get to share your designs with other people in the community through Discord as well. So check out that second week happening today after this stream. Also, that's what's happening today. Near the end, last 30 minutes of the stream, we're doing an artist spotlight. We are going to be giving props to another designer in the community. We'll be sharing her portfolio on Behance. And if you guys are interested in being a spotlight artist, or you have a recommendation for someone else, check out the artist spotlight tab on Behance. And there's like a little form there you can fill out. And if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. The chat moderator will help you guys out. All right. So without further ado, hello, Jill. Tell us a little bit more for people who are new today, who weren't here yesterday, who you are a little background, what you worked on yesterday, and what you plan on covering today.
Sure. So I'm Jill. Welcome, everyone. I am a product design manager up in Boston, Massachusetts. Right now, I'm working at a cybersecurity company, leading a small group of product designers across a bunch of products, but I've worked in a lot of industries before that. One of my more, creative jobs I've had was at a company called Love Pop Cards. They do 3D greeting cards, and there I was doing work for their e-commerce site, designing like collections pages, different flows for checkout, lots of like fun creative things that let me also do some illustration work. You can kind of see what their cards look like here. They're really fun. I recommend checking them out. See, I'll pull one more up. This is a case study, so I have to scroll a lot to get down to the end. But yeah, so on here you could see I got to do like lots of fun illustrations. So I like to show this project because that's always fun to be able to pull in some of my graphic design skills into UX projects. Little owls.
Oh, those are so cute.
Yeah. These days, I'm kind of on the other end of the spectrum for design. The projects I work on are very technical. In cybersecurity. So, and none of those are on here for confidentiality reasons, but yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw you did some painting on your Dribble account too, like beautiful artwork. I was like, yeah, very impressed. Yeah, if you don't mind, like I have a blank wall at the house and
right. I did, yeah, these are actually probably 5 or 6 years ago at this point. But when I was in school, I worked closely with this professor. So I do not take credit for like the design on these, but it was really fun to be able to go and work on like huge murals. Very different than what we'll be doing today, but still super creative and fun. Cool.
Yeah, it's awesome to see how designers can like flex all these different skills, like even me being a singer, and yeah, we're all kinds of creative.
Yeah.
So what are we working on today?
So today, I'm gonna just close that. Today, we're gonna continue a project that we started yesterday on a mobile app that takes a lot of different like pet and specifically for this project, dog products and surfaces like different resources that you need if you just got like a new puppy and you're trying to figure out how to raise this small crazy animal. Just for context, for those of you that weren't with us yesterday, these pups, there's 2 of them. These are my corgis. I got both of them during the pandemic. So I have been doing a lot of learning and on like my own research on, okay, I have 2 crazy puppies. How do I train them? Like I had to find a vet. There's lots of different fun products you can get for your dogs that like help them like be more active, healthy, figuring out what to feed them. The list goes on and on. So the goal of this project is to kind of take all of those needs and create a mobile app that helps finding all of those answers a lot easier than having to go and Google and find all separate resources to answer those questions. We started out yesterday, I'll just go over this really briefly, looking at some kind of like what I would consider competitive analysis for this project. Just looking at a couple other products, like WAG is a dog walking service that's been around for a bit. It's pretty popular. This is actually screenshots from Rover, which is like a competitor of theirs. This is one of my favorites, the Fi Collar. This is like a product that tracks your dog's activity through a collar that has like a little GPS built into it. So I use that to validate my feelings about my dogs being crazy. This like proves that they are very active. And then my last but not least, Furbo is another product that like lets you like see your dogs when you're away. So it's a camera that also has like a treat thrower built into it, so you can shoot treats at your dog when you're not home. Yeah, so, and I'm sure there's tons of other products out there, but these are just a few that I looked at to be like, okay, like let's look at roughly like the UX of these products and see what's happening there. Here's a bunch of, let's see, screens of Wally. This is one of my dogs, Wally, being happy on top of my sofa. So we'll jump from that. We'll jump over and I'll go over kind of where we left off yesterday. Yesterday, I'd say we landed in kind of a mid-fidelity state, a little bit more than wireframes. We have some color in there, but not completely like high fidelity ready to go. So we started out, we got our icon for the app launcher, and we did a creative brainstorm in the chat for this app name. I do not take credit for the app name, but we landed on PawPal. So we did a splash screen, which I'm happy with for the sake of this project. We've got login or create a new account. And then the first step that we tackled was like adding a pet to this app. So you would go through this flow to add one of your own pets. And I'm hoping to prototype all of this together by the end of stream today. So I'll just go through it pretty quickly right now. You got your form, you fill out that, add your first pet. And then this is kind of where we left off. So this was probably the last like 5 or 10 minutes of stream yesterday. So we threw some content on this screen really fast of, okay, like what could the home screen kind of look like? But this I consider like pretty wireframey. So I think today what we'll do is we will brush these screens up a little bit and then continue on a couple other maybe of these tabs. And then we'll do some prototyping.
Awesome.
That's what we're going to try.
They're already looking great.
That's what we're going to try to do in 2 hours.
You already did a bunch of screens yesterday. They're already looking really good. So I'm excited to see how you're going to up it from here.
Yeah, we'll up it a little bit. These tiles are definitely bigger than I want them to be. So I think we'll like reduce the content that gets surfaced here and make it so that you can see more tiles on one screen, especially with this being mobile, your real estate is pretty valuable. So was also thinking of making the screens not so white. They're very white right now. So I went through this a little bit, and I've added some styles here. And for those not as familiar, what you can do is, if you're happy with, say, like, I like this style of text and I'm happy with it and I want to reuse it other places, you just go, you select that text and you can just add a character style, clicking the button. It might not actually, I already added this one, so it's not going to do it, but it will show up here. This right now is using my field placeholder text style, so it won't change, but let's see, if I changed it to like links, it updates. But I'm thinking this screen, let's do, I'm gonna use like a really light gray for the background on these. I think that just makes it look a little bit more polished, makes the fields actually stand out a little bit more.
Yeah.
That worked, except for now my plus guy blends in too much, so we'll just bump that up a little bit. Sure, that looks good. Okay. These are fine.
Yeah, it's crazy how just like a little bit of the gray background does make it feel a little more polished. Like, oh, it's starting to go from low to mid to high fidelity.
Yeah, a little bit higher. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that was really what was doing it for me. Like yesterday, I was like, these really look more wireframing than I thought they might. But I think just this little detail kind of really helps in that. Okay, so now we're at the home screen, and I do want to I'll keep the gray going through these. I'm just gonna add it now so I don't overlook it later, but oh, that wasn't the way to do it. Because now I'm losing my, so make sure that these look okay. All right, so now we've got the same background at least in the home screen. And now for the tiles, I'm going to move everything over because I need some space. All right. I'm going to copy this. And actually gonna delete these and just use this as like a reference for content. But other than that, we're gonna go through these one more time and give them a little bit more visual design. So that.
For those of you just joining us, we are, or not we, mostly Jill is doing all the work. I'm watching, is working on a dog parent app. Maybe if you guys have any animals yourself, let us know in the chat. I have a little puppy from the pandemic as well. Jill's got 2 corgis from the pandemic pups as well. Feels like it was a big theme for this last year.
For sure is.
I'm sure tons of people want this app.
Okay, so I'm happy with like the size of that tile. I'm going to, what is the shadow on this? I think maybe with the gray background. Yeah, that feels better. These just feel like a little heavy right now with the shadows. Okay, so roughly that could be that. We got Wally. Like I mentioned, I saved some textiles, so I'm going to try to keep reusing those. And that should save us some time so that we can get through a good amount of screens. Okay, so card titles. Let's see how far that is, 16. And then I kind of want some subtext. I don't really know what it should say, but maybe I'll just do, actually, I said he was mixed breed. And then, yeah. Okay. These are, and these buttons up here help you like easily center objects in relation to each other. So that's a good one to use. Okay, so that can be kind of like a rough card layout. And then over here, yesterday when we wired this out, I included the title was kind of like the category of the thing. So I think I'm gonna actually rethink that, and I'm going to put these titles not on the cards, and I'm gonna use them to like group cards together. So I'm gonna add, I'll just call this my pets. Card sections, okay. I'll line that up. Yeah, that feels roughly, oh, I didn't group those. Gotta group my card.
Are you using the shortcut for group?
Yeah, so grouping is just Command G.
Yeah, that's a good one to know.
Definitely a good one to know.
Yeah, the grouping and the ungrouping shortcuts, those are kind of used quite a bit. Command G and then Shift Command G, but I'm wondering what it is for Windows users. Option
I don't know.
It might be Option Command G.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll throw in the link there for all the shortcuts. I have a link I can share.
Nice. Another action I wanted to incorporate on this screen is like if I'm at this place and I decide that I want to add another dog. I'll just call it add pet, but put that in link. And I'm just gonna leave that action here for now. We might move it later, but it's okay. It's roughly where it needs to be. 24. Okay, it's a little. And then I'm going to reuse this. Let's see.
We have a question here.
Sure.
From Lemore. Do you use grids when you design at this phase?
I think it really depends. Like who is going to be developing your product and if they're using grids. So like full honesty, a lot of places I've worked haven't used strict grids in development. And that might be a symptom of being in cybersecurity perhaps, but we have recently moved towards more structure, but those elements are kind of built into the templates on the dev side. So I personally don't. I think that it's a good skill to have for sure. And there are places, like if you want to work with certain companies that would expect using grids like that for sure.
But you're also like, you're using kind of like the 8-point grid system too throughout.
Yeah, I am. I like things to be spaced evenly. So I will try to use fonts and spacing that are in multiples of 8, but I don't usually throw like the actual grid that you can lay out on your boards. So, yeah. But that's just me. I think that if you find it helpful, then and it saves you time doing that, then 100% go for it. No one's gonna be like, oh, they use grids. Right? It's always a good thing to use grids. Let's put it that way. Okay. What was I? Okay, weekly. I'm gonna call this weekly challenges. And then for this, let's see, so from here, what I can do is I can create this as a component. And to do that, let's see if I add it, it will show up. Okay, perfect. So I will call that, I'll just call it like tile with photo. Because we're going to create some tiles that have icons too. So I'm going to make sure that, delete this one so I don't get confused. And then let's have my textiles. We'll create one more tile, 20. I just noticed that my first text is 20 from the top, and that bothers me. So,
well, actually, this leads to a good follow-up question that came up from the grid question. S. Kuna Mili is asking, how do you accurately measure spacing then using the 8-point grid? So you're kind of just displaying that.
Oh, yeah. So to look at spacing in your designs, you can do, at least on a Mac, you hold down Shift and Option with something selected, and you kind of like point at what you want to know the distance of, and it will give you this little guide that tells you, so like these are 24 pixels apart. To the edge, it's 16. And you can do that with like anything. So I can select this shape and say, okay, this is 16 away from this text. So you'll see me doing that a lot.
Yeah, it's really handy.
Yeah. Yes. I want to do.
I'm also throwing in the chat just a little article on the 8-point grid system too, if you guys want to read further. And Voodoo Val shared the shortcuts, so thanks for doing that. If you guys want to see more of those shortcuts and from Mac as well as Windows users.
20, I did 16 up here. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to do, what did I say it was going to be?
So like, tell me about, did you wake up this morning like, I want to change that home screen? Or did it like come to you in the night? Or how does that work for you when you're like, I need to change something?
I knew I wanted to change it, honestly, yesterday when I was making it. I was like, I wanted to just get some content on it in the last like 10 or 5 minutes that we had left. So it was more so that. And then I figured I'd take some time and think a little bit more about the styling on it today with all of you. But yeah, sometimes on like other projects, it will just occur to me at, random times when you're actually doing something else. I feel like is sometimes when I get answers to like problems I've been trying to solve at work, or like you hate to see it when you're thinking about work when you're not working, but sometimes it just happens. You're like, oh, that's like so obvious now that I've stepped away from my computer and I had some time to like decompress a little, breathe, and then that's when you can problem solve the best sometimes, at least for me. Okay. I'm just gonna grab this icon. And I want to make that a little bit bigger. Maybe 36. That's a little bit too big. 32. Okay. It's fine. Yeah, I definitely knew yesterday. I was like, that was towards the end, I felt like we got lower fidelity. So I figured I would go back and do some fixing on that. let's see.
Also, just a reminder, if you guys are on YouTube, please come over to behance.net/Adobe Live to engage in the chat. Because I'm not looking at the YouTube chat, I'm only looking at the Behance. So if you guys want to connect with the community, please come to behance.net/Adobe Live.
Okay, that could be roughly a tile there. I want to also actually add some arrows to these.
And you're using the auto icon plugin again. You got a lot of icons from there. It's a great place I need to check out.
It is great. And I do have the version where you get a bunch, like a lot more if you pay just like $20, but the free version also has thousands of icons too. So I recommend. It's almost like too many sometimes. I'm like, I just need a left arrow. Like, I don't know. Why is this so difficult? Or I guess it would be a right arrow technically. Nope, that wasn't it. What else to call an arrow? I just want like half of this, you know what I mean? Right? Maybe I will. No, it's in here somewhere.
Must be. That's like the most basic.
It's the most basic, and yet here I am with all of these arrows. But this is
there we go.
There we go. Now you can see how many arrows they have, but just not the arrow you need. Okay. Let's try like 16. Yeah, that's fine. I like my icons to be usually on the smaller side. This is still feeling a little big to me, but I'm using it kind of as a placeholder for what could be like a nicer illustration. But for the sake of time on this stream, I'm not gonna do that. Let's see.
Uriel in the chat said carrot. I was like, oh carrot. Yeah, we could have just looked up carrot. Chevron. Yep. Okay, you guys.
Yeah, I just think of it as an arrow earlier. Yeah, 100%. Yes, that's
Thanks for those recommendations. That probably would have been faster. Less than greater than.
Definitely would have been faster. Yeah.
It's getting really specific.
Oh well. Okay. It's like roughly centered. Okay. Actually wanna. Oh, I already made that a component. Let's see. I'm gonna add this. So group. Just redo that real quick. I don't know if that would. Okay, so this is a component. This is not the component yet. Yeah.
So Lori mentioned in the chat that for her, she wants to, or she often finds that if she moves away from the project and like gets some space, she can come at it with a pair of fresh eyes. I agree. I think like it's always good to take some space than to like get really into it and be like overwhelmed and like frustrated with yourself. The other thing I find is like just asking someone like, do you mind just taking a look at this? Like, what are your thoughts? Another designer, or even my husband, like he's often a pretty good critic. So yeah, if anyone else has other ideas of how to kind of break through creative blocks, I recommend putting in the chat.
That feels a little cramped. Let's see. Okay, activities. Yep.
So for anyone who is just joining us, we've just been about 30 minutes into the session. If you just joined us, we are on day 2. Maybe Chris just joined us. Hey, Chris. We're on day 2 of Jill is creating this mobile app for pet owners, mostly specifically dog owners. And today she kind of created already like 6-7 onboarding screens. She had the home dashboard, and now she's kind of like going back and redesigning it a little bit. Yesterday she was like, oh, well, maybe a little too wireframey. So she's going through it all. Mm-hmm. And letting us kind of know why she's kind of needing those fresh eyes today to come at it. So we're talking about that. So welcome.
Yeah, I feel like I'm using most of the same elements that we kind of came up with yesterday, but I'm just like repositioning them to just look a little bit cleaner. Not as much information overload on one screen as here, where you have like, it's just a lot of reading. Honestly, I'm a UX designer that definitely tries to err on the side of less text rather than more, because you will find that people do not read. So if you have a lot of text, chances are it might work against you. Let's see. Down phase. Okay.
Yeah, I definitely feel like when I'm looking, I'm more interested in reading and looking at the left hand side than the right hand one. Maybe like who in the chat feels like, do they prefer the left or the right? Do they like reading a lot? Or what do you guys think when you look at these two screens and showing her like, she has the before screen on the right, and the after screen on the left? I think I also like seeing the icon on the left. Like it helps to kind of like, what am I associate what I'm looking at? Like, oh, and maybe just more pleasant little icon.
Yeah, it gives it a little bit, a little more visual interest. Otherwise it would be pretty gray and white. But I'm kind of thinking ahead a little bit on once we get to prototyping, it would be cool if we could get this screen to scroll a little bit so I can show how you can like fix these, like the header and footer, so those won't move on your prototype, but then everything else will be scrollable. So I'm gonna go over here to fix position when scrolling and make sure that that is turned on for this, as well as the bottom. And we'll see if the layers are in the right order when we go to do that. But you just have to be really careful when you use that feature that your layers are ordered properly. Otherwise, you'll have things like sliding over your headers and footers, but it's easy to fix if it happens. Okay, I'm gonna stretch this, and that's kind of how we're gonna get the extra room. Group those. Nope, I'm gonna group those. There we go. Is my arrow there? Okay. Okay.
So Lemore is asking, do you have to group before making a component?
Actually, that's a good question. I group everything all the time, regardless. That's just the way that I work. So I've never actually tried to make a component without grouping it. I assume that you can. We can try it right now.
Yeah,
honestly.
We can try it.
Yeah,
you can, but I don't remember the layers. Like, I don't know if it automatically groups it or if it just has separate layers. Maybe we could do a little test.
Yeah, I'll do it right now. Here we go. I'm gonna ungroup everything. Ungroup component. Sure. Okay, so
maybe can you pull up
I grouped it so many times. That's like, okay, now everything is individual. But if we do that, then it says make component, and yeah, you can. I think it kind of groups it for you.
Yeah, I wanted to see, do you mind opening up the layers panel and seeing what it shows?
So now this is a component and it just shows. Oops. Yeah, it's the component, and then you can like kind of expand it, and you still have all of the.
So the component is like a group.
Basically. It is like a group, basically. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know that. I've always just grouped things by default, and then I make them a component, but that's an unnecessary step, as we all learned here today.
Yeah, thanks for bringing up that question.
Yeah, there you go. I'm just gonna reuse. Actually, is this still a component? No, I lost track of my components. But that's totally fine. I'm just gonna copy this one and make sure we're using the same thing. And then I want to like send this back. Actually, what we can do here, wasn't even thinking of this. We can use the repeat grid and just stretch a bunch of these out. I think. Is it gonna? Nope, I need 2 of them. Hence the repeat part of the grid. Okay. I think.
Yeah, you could also just do it with the one as well.
You can. Oh, it wasn't doing any.
It just has a weird spacing, so you'll.
Yeah.
You have to so mess with that.
Okay, maybe not. Maybe I won't mess with this because it's not doing what I thought it would do. But so if I just select one, it should do this. Oh, it does.
But just like a lot of spacing.
I see. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, I'm gonna give it like roughly 16, and then you can just stretch a bunch of them out. So it'll save you time in mocks as long as you can figure it out. Like I was like, why isn't this? It was the spacing was not what I expected it to be there.
It's always like such a weird gap, like a big bounce. So you have to like, oh, there's the other one.
Yeah. Okay. And we get a little bit of the funny like shadow cut off here. Let's see if I can. That's better. Okay. And then I want to send these back. And then I'm gonna grab this and just reuse it. So we have like one more section here at the bottom. And I'm gonna use this for the health section.
People are agreeing that they like the new version better.
Nice.
Stoney's like, people don't read.
People don't read.
People don't read. And Jella says she doesn't like to read. I get it.
I also don't like to read.
And then we had a question from S. Kunamili. What's the advantage of grouping things?
I think they just help with like organization. That's the way I've always thought about it. And then if you know that you want to say like copy and reuse something, you don't have to worry about losing little pieces as you move things around. At least that's what happens to me if I don't group everything, which is why you'll see me kind of grouping over and over to the point where if I have to ungroup anything, sometimes I've got things grouped like in a very nested way. It's like, okay, these two things are grouped, and then I grouped it with this other thing.
Yeah, that is the trouble. You're like trying to bring just like the health tips section, and then like maybe one little aspect, like the little carrot or the chevron or the right arrow, whichever we want to call it, is like not attached. You have to bring it with it. That could be really tiresome as you're trying to like move things around.
Yeah. Yep, that. These. Okay. Tick season. Keep your safe. Okay, barely fit, but it fit. Okay, so I'm happy with that. These are a little bit lighter on the content, so that's good, I think. I'm gonna stretch this down a little bit more, because when you go to do a prototype with this scrolling feature, you basically want enough white space at the bottom that it's like roughly the size of this element here. Otherwise, your last tile will end up getting cut off. I can kind of show what I mean right now. Hopefully this will be in the right order. Let me make sure it's on front, and this is on the front.
Yeah, so you're just dragging over those groups in the layers so that they're at the top of the artboard.
Yes, yeah. So I just used the shortcut to move this element to the top layer as well as this element, because we want all of the other content on the page to scroll up and down. But when it does that, we want it to be behind these elements, not on top, because otherwise that will look very strange. So let's see. Okay, cool. So now you have this screen that looks kind of realistic of what scrolling on a mobile device could end up looking like, with your footer like stuck and your header also stuck to the top, other content goes behind it. And then, yeah, it ended kind of roughly where we'd want it to. If I didn't have this white space, I'll just show you what happens. It cuts off a little bit too early, and it just like gets stuck there. And that's just because it ends up stopping behind this element. So you just need that extra space there to complete the illusion, essentially. Cool.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Pro tip.
Okay, pro tip.
Pro tip alert.
Pro tip that I discovered after I failed the first time.
Yeah, that's why you're
always
pro
learning.
now.
Always learning. Okay. So yeah, so that's one kind of quick prototype screen there. And I'm happy with how that looks at this point. So we can get rid of this screen because we're not going to use that. I just wanted to reference the content on it. So we can do go to the services screen. And I already switched the section that's highlighted here to be services to go with this new page. But I'm going to pretty much try to like reuse similar components for each of these sections, because I don't think that there's a good enough reason in this case to create totally different layouts on each tab. And then that way the user kind of learns the pattern pretty quickly and it's easy to like navigate around. So that being said, I'm going to go over here. Yesterday, I briefly went over that, like I kind of outlined this list of items that I thought might be included in this app. And the section we're going to now is services. So I'm just going to grab this for my own reference. Put that up here. And also, I already did a little bit of the legwork on finding icons for these so that you don't all have to watch me search for icons for half an hour. It's a little bit time consuming. Okay, so now we have kind of rough assets that I want to use for this page. I'm going to, do I want to just steal this? Maybe. Yeah. Now this is the element from the other page that I already used the repeat grid on. So I'm just lining it up here. So that's like pretty quick and easy. I think I do want to keep, I kind of like having the heading here, even though this, I don't think we'll actually have multiple sections on this page since these are all services, but I think we can just use this as a heading still and just say like, I don't know, something like this. I am not a copywriter, but,
Such
but
an
it's,
art, huh?
I would rather, yeah, I mean, there's a reason it's a separate job, really. But
Mm-hmm.
I would rather put in an attempt at copy than just lorem ipsum for this. Core unit. Okay, so we're going to take this and we're going to use color. I believe, yeah, I used the darker purple for the icons. Even though it looks similar, this one doesn't want to be color. Why is that?
Oh, it might only be
Oh, it's a
border, yeah.
border. Psh. Okay. Cheating. Okay, there we go. Did I actually put a fill on it? No. Okay, that's fine. So we'll go through and I'm just gonna do some quick replace on these tiles and swap out the icons and then move on from that.
We're also getting an interesting discussion through the chat. Voodoo asked, what do you do if you have a client who insists on incorporating tons of text that doesn't end up looking clean in the design? And we're having a lot of back and forths here. The Adondo is like, don't let clients give you options. You're the surgeon, and their suggestions ruin everything. And then Caitlin's like, well, how do you get paid? And Voodoo has a great response saying that she found that sometimes you have to do what they say and then you give them something better so that they'll choose the better one. What are your thoughts, Jill?
Yeah, I think that's like a very smart way to do it, because then you're kind of being strategic in you're like right there your client, so you can't really constantly tell people that their ideas are bad. People just don't like that. And sometimes you actually do learn stuff from going through with these other ideas that you initially think like, oh, I would never like recommend doing that. But yeah, I think that's a really smart way to tackle it, is like take on the challenge of trying to show them that there is a better way to do what they're talking about. And I would say more often than not, I've had success with that. Like, there is always a constant battle though with copy. Copy is a very unique use case. I think especially if you're working with like marketers or anyone who is more like reading inclined, like they actually do read a lot of the stuff that gets put on like web pages, etc. It's hard to get them to see it from the UX point of view, where usually it's like less copy is better. So might just be a matter of finding a middle ground.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like Caitlin says, I always say what I might suggest is, so maybe that's a good point. Like you kind of don't go like, well, this is the way it's supposed to be. And this is a UX best practice.
Yeah.
So yeah, it might be just the delivery too. And so that's a great suggestion. If anyone else has other suggestions on how they handle that as well, please feel free to put it in the chat. Also, if you are on the YouTube chat, come on over to behance.net/Adobe Live and join us here. This is where we're really interacting with each other through the chat here on Behance.
So I'm just recreating the same kind of scrolling effect that we did on the last screen. just making sure that these are set to not scroll, and then making sure that they are at the front of the artboard. It's going to be hard to write text over that though. All right, change my mind. It's going to the back for now, just so that I can change the copy on them. Okay, grooming, almost there. Veterinary and emergency.
And also, if you want to just let people know your shortcut for sending backward and sending forward.
Yeah.
Such a good one.
Yeah. So now that I have to like actually look at it and think what it was, is Shift Command brackets, right? Yeah. I'm like, was it Shift Option or Shift Command? It's all like muscle memory after a while.
I know.
But yeah, Shift Command and then either left or right brackets are for forward and backwards. And that's like send all the way to the front or all the way to the back, which is what I use all the time. There's also a shortcut for if you want to just do it like one layer at a time, but I actually don't know what that is off of hand because I never use that. I suspect it's, here we go. We can cheat and look, Command and brackets. So just lose the shift.
Yeah, you guys can right click to see just like she did. Like maybe that's the first few times you use it, probably just like right click and then look and then remember the shortcut. I feel like it's like overwhelming to look at all the shortcuts at one time and try to learn them all. And it's like maybe like one per week or something like that.
Yeah.
Start accumulating them.
Yeah. And I remember I was so grateful when XD first came out, years ago. I do remember that like a lot of the shortcuts were the same as like InDesign and programs that I've been using for a long time. So I was like, oh, good. This like carries over. I don't have to rewrite everything in my brain. But those were the good old days. It feels like so long ago.
There are similar shortcuts within like XD and Sketch and stuff like that. So when I transferred from Sketch to XD, I was like, oh, there's some similar ones here. Well, also in the chat, if you guys, what are your favorite shortcuts? If you've used XD or any sort of tool, what are your favorite ones? Do you have a favorite, Jill?
For shortcuts? I really like the masking shortcut because I do use that a lot too, to like quickly prototype things together. I'm trying to think if I'm going to use that for this. Not on this screen, but like yesterday we used masking to create this, and it's just Shift Command M. So you can mask a couple of things together really quickly that way.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And I think we might use it a little bit later, actually, now that I'm thinking about that. But not on this screen, no masking icons. This feels really large. Too small. Okay. I don't really know why I picked a tennis ball for daycare. I guess. I mean, they play with toys at daycare.
Yeah.
Maybe that was my logic. At the time, I'm like,
that makes sense.
What was yesterday, Jill, thinking? All right. Gotta send this to back again. These icons can be persnickety to pick up. Okay. I'm just doing like, I'm kind of guesstimating on the centering on these just to move a little bit faster. So forgive me if they are not pixel perfect, but okay. Now,
I think we're also getting a lot of good feedback from we asked how to handle clients kind of just generally. And Andrea came in. I think maybe Andrea just joined us. Welcome. And she was saying that when you have a concept in mind, you have to be flexible and accept in the end you're designing for others. So I do think that is a good That's good advice, to be flexible for your clients as well as your users, not just your users. So being a little flexible. And then Chris mentioned if the client provides examples of the competition, then sometimes that can be a starting point for discussion by asking them why they do or don't like those examples. So that's great. You kind of figure out the why before you're like, well, this is what I want. We're kind of more understanding your client, where they're coming from, perhaps, before you give recommendations. I think that's a great one, Chris. And then Eduardo says, I think you have to have a nice way to keep clients focused on the end goal rather than the details, like color selection or tiny shapes. So that's a good one too. Like finding nice ways. What's your nice way, Eduardo, of like keeping, or anyone, nice ways of kind of going about helping them get focused on a higher end stuff versus like little details like that?
When I'm designing, I like to try to like remind whoever I'm designing for, or like if, for example, right now, I wouldn't say I have clients necessarily because I just work for one company, but the stakeholders of a project, you kind of have to keep reminding them like what the actual user need is on projects and like what specific goal you're trying to accomplish, and then make sure that your design keeps steering towards that goal and doesn't get sidetracked, because it's super easy, especially on larger projects, to lose sight of like what you actually started trying to do, or to get like what we would call like out of scope on a project really easly, where you start adding a bunch of other features where you're like, oh, well, we could do this also because we're doing this. But that actually might not really answer what you were trying to solve at the time. So
yeah, I think that's great feedback, because if you start your presentations like, this is the goal, this is how we were able to achieve that goal through this design, and maybe even through feedback that we've received through testing. And then you instead of being like showing screens like, so what do you think? Right. If you have like, this is the goal we agreed upon, this is the outcome and how we've met that goal. And then it kind of like doesn't leave so much wiggle room on the details, perhaps, too.
Yeah. I just realized I didn't do any of the subtext. I'll do like a few of them and then we'll just move on.
Yeah, for those of you just coming in, welcome. We're about halfway through our session. And Jill, this is day 2. She's been working on a mobile app for pet owners. And she's working on the dashboard screen today and the services page, and hoping to get some prototyping in today too. And then in about 30 minutes, I'm going to do artist spotlight. We're going to celebrate a creative in the community. Always feels good to give some love to our fellow designers. So stick around for that. And if you're interested in becoming or being spotlighted, if you go into the Behance site, there's the little tab, Artist Spotlight. You can go in there and either sign up for yourself or maybe someone else you recommend as well.
So I'm going to select boarding from this screen within services. We're going to stay in the services section, I think. But like steal this and put that on the screen. And then I want to kind of mock up what, if you clicked into boarding, what you could see on the screen. I think that having a search at this point would make sense. So I already took these from, I don't think I've showed this yet today. There's a design file that you can get that's for XD that has all of your iOS elements. You can download this directly from Apple. If you just look up, I'm trying to think of what I even Googled, but like iOS, like Apple template kit or something, it should come right up. And this is really good because you can just take whatever you need from here and use that in your designs if you're doing native elements. So it'll save some time there. So I already did that. I took this search from that file and I actually made it its own component just for the sake of doing that there if I wanted to make any changes, but I'm going to use it as is for this. And I'm just gonna add that to our boarding page. And then I'm going to mock up like what those tiles could look like. I kind of see this a little bit more starting to take form as like what you would see when you look up this kind of thing directly on like Google Maps, for example, is how I search for things around me. Oftentimes I'll just jump into Google Maps, and if I want the search results to be based on my location, I find that that's what I end up doing all the time. So I'm going to kind of mimic that a little bit here. We'll keep the tile component, but add specific info for different places that you could board your dog. And then we'll probably switch away from the icons because I don't really want to use the same icon on every tile. I did some screen grabs of different places near me that I know of that could like fit into this category. I will probably only use 1 or 2 of these for the sake of time. I want to use that.
Yeah, we also got Uriel and Voodoo Val sharing the link to the UI kit that you just displayed for iOS. So if you guys want to check that out and play around with UI kits, Lloyd.
Nice. Yeah, I did that yesterday too, so I was hoping someone would reshare. I was like, I can't do it right now, but I mean, I guess I could, but we got a lot to do right now. So, okay. Tile with photo. No, I'll just do this, and that way I can show you the like masking that I was talking about. Let's see. Oops, not Boston. And then what do I want to include as secondary? I don't know. I'm going to kind of copy like what I did here. What did I do? 65. That is a random number. Okay. I'm going to do 64 because 65 is uneven and makes me sad. Let's see. Okay. Now I want to take this, and that's going to be too small, but we will scale that up and make it kind of like, we're gonna have to scale it a lot, but make it roughly the size of this circle. So I'm just gonna steal this icon from this screen grab. Just guess that that's roughly where it is, but using the Shift Command M, we got our mask, and that was like, okay guess, but now we can
pretty good.
Get in there and make it look a little bit better. Now this, actually, now I'm thinking about this, it's white on white, of course. That's okay. It actually looks kind of nice, just not having its outline. But if we had others, they would have, I'll do it with this one and see the actual masking work, but.
We also have a question here from Alexander about, is using ready-made kits, UI kits, kind of cheating?
I mean, little bit. But I mean, I don't think it's like cheating. If you're going to be building your app with those elements anyways, then like I think it's totally fine. There's a reason they exist, to kind of just save you time. Yeah. And otherwise you're going to spend time like recreating what Apple did, basically.
Yeah, I feel like it's like work smarter, not harder. Like that's streamline your processes wherever you can.
Yeah.
Helps you to focus more on strategy too, versus like a search button. Like how many times can you create a search button? It's like pretty similar from one to the next. But placement is important, and all those other strategies again, like gives you that space, I think.
Yeah. Do I want to use, I'm just like slowing down for a second here, think about what I'm doing. I'm gonna use this again. Just get real quick repeated tiles. Do that. It's roughly right. I'm not going to go crazy with the scrolling on this screen. There we go. Okay. And where is this Newton? So these are all businesses that are actually really close to where I am. I have never used Pooch Hotel, but I do endorse Boston for the dogs. They are kind of like a one-stop shop for training, boarding, walks, everything you could need. I think that, like, honestly, the having that kind of resource has been so important for me right now with having my 2 puppies. It's been a lifesaver for my sanity. So if you ever get a puppy, for everyone in the chat, find a good place that will take them out on walks, especially if you have corgis, because I'll take them out on like one, probably like, I don't know how long, but like 1 or 2 good walks a day, but they can do hours. So I'm like, if I want some silence while I'm on meetings or doing design, getting them out is like so good. Okay, I'm going to leave here. I don't want to spend too much more time doing this. So I'm just gonna cheat and do lots of Boston for the dogs. That's sort of centered. Okay, pretend those are different search results. So now we have wording, and this would be like, if you click on one of these items, what do we see? And this will not use tiles. I want to grab this just for the info, but I also grabbed a photo from their business.
Oh.
We also have a map, but I'm not really sure if we'll need the map. So I'm gonna like throw this on here. I think I want to actually crop it a little bit. So do that. I don't want it to take up like that much of the screen, but I want to leave his logo in there. And I don't want to lose the top of his head. Yeah, I use masking a lot just to do like quick mocks.
Yeah, and you're using one of the best or fastest shortcuts or easiest ones to remember, R for rectangle.
Yes.
If you're just starting with shortcuts, it's one of the best. R for rectangle.
Yeah, just press R, and then circle is actually E for ellipse. I always, for some reason, think it's O, but it's not, it's E. Yeah. What do I want to call this? I don't know if I want to do like boarding detail, or if I want to actually put the name. Actually, I'm just going to keep it boarding, because I'm going to put the business name down here in larger text. I also am thinking we need a way to get back. So if you click into boarding here and you go to this page, how can you get back to the services? So I want to add like a back link up here in the nav. I mean, I'm sure if this was functional, you could also I would expect as a user to be able to click the services and it would bring me back to the top level services. But I also want to give them an option to just go back one level. So I'm gonna need another. Oh, why did it do that? Okay, did it go to the back? No, it just deleted. Okay, attempt 2 on the back. That's funny. Okay, got our link color. I'm just gonna use this for now. Purple, blue on purple, not the best for contrast probably, but I think that the purple is light enough here that we can kind of get away with it. I want an arrow, kind of like this one. I just steal the arrow. Let's see if it's super grouped in there. Cool. Okay. Yeah, I think that's good. It's like a little bit heavier than your normal iOS styling would be, but I'm okay with it because it's blue on purple. So I think we need all of the text weight. Hope we can get there. So I'm gonna also carry this. I'm gonna group it because I love to group things. And then I am going to copy that over. Oops. Copy that over, paste it here. Guess on the spacing for that for now. And then I want to like put some of the actual business info here so that you can learn a little bit more about them, and then also some CTAs to like contact them, whether it's like phone or email. I'm sure other businesses would have like maybe scheduling options right in the app. But for the sake of this, I'll probably just do phone and email because I know that that's how this business works from experience. But we still got our link color going here, but we'll fix that in a minute. Details, title, I think. Yeah, so this is, I already created this text style earlier, but I think that this works for giving this page a little bit of a larger size for text. We've been doing a lot of 16 and 14 point text on this project. I'm used to working with pretty small type. At work, our default size somehow ended up being 13, which drives me crazy because there's no nice way to like line 13 up with like anything. But I'm used to looking at 13 point font all the time. So this to me is like, wow, that's really big.
And is that like the body font? You guys start with 13?
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
it's pretty
small. For being like accessible, ideally, I think you want to be at least 16, right? Or that might be
15.
AAA standards. There's AA and AAA. AAA being like the highest level, right? But we're 13, so okay. How much of this info do I want to pull over here? I kind of want to bring their icon back over again, just because, but I'll wait. I'll do that after. We can also include the ratings. I'm probably gonna just like duplicate this copy real quick. So I'm gonna do dog. It's default.
Voodoo Val is giving some props to you, Jill. She's saying this is looking really clean. I agree. It's looking nice and clean and also friendly, which I like
Thank
with
you.
the dog.
Yeah.
The dog photos.
Yeah. Oh, dogs. I'm a dog person, so this is nice to like at least, if anything, I'm like, at least I get to trade an app with dogs and stuff. He's so cute. A little wiener dog there for sure. Kind of like my dogs with the stumpy legs, but I figured I would include a non-corgi photo. Okay, we got that. I'm gonna also do the stars because why not? We need to find a star.
For those of you who are in the chat and just viewing and watching, I'd love to know, have you guys designed anything in XD yet? Or is this maybe your first time seeing anyone design in XD and you're like just trying to get a feel for it? I know that we did have some people mention they're just kind of getting into UI UX and this is helping to kind of see someone else's process. Yeah, I'd love to know a little bit about you guys and where you're at in your XD and design process. Cute little stars.
Little stars.
Stars are my favorite.
The stars. They're kind of like, those are maybe a little big, but I want them to be like, okay. Now I only need like half of this star, but I don't know how easy that's gonna be able to do. It depends how this was drawn. Okay. Oh, there's a lot of dots here. All right, I'll take that for like really quick. There we go. We got our 4.5 stars. And then we got some like contact info here. I want to use my styles go. I think that's what I set details body text maybe. Okay. And I don't remember what the address actually is. 14 Brooklyn. I should know this by now, but it's okay. This is actually a place that I have taken my puppies.
So Chris has mentioned he's loving XD, woohoo! Nice. And using it to animate images for clients. Ooh, what kind of images are you animating? Or is like using auto animate, e-commerce, or and then now you're loving the app design process too. That's super cool. It's also interesting to see how different people use XD for different things and not just for app design. I'm seeing more people use it for marketing and social media. I use actually XD for social media quite a bit. So I create all my carousels on XD.
Nice. They just came out with, I haven't used it yet, but I've seen they came out with a new presentation. I think it's a plugin, right, for XD?
Yeah, I haven't used it.
I haven't used it either, but it looks really cool. It sounds very promising.
Yeah.
I want to check it out, but it wasn't for this stream. Let's see. Okay. Give those hours. One more of. I'm going to include a CTA for calling also, because especially if you're on a phone, I like to be able to just like press a button and it does all the work for you there. But I'll still include the phone number. Oops. Mm-hmm. Oops.
So Taz is asking a question about UX UI. How far should you go with wireframes and user testing before designing the end result? Seems like people just design finished projects, but what about all the research? Do you have any thoughts on that, Jess?
I think it kind of depends what you're testing. Like I've done testing on lower fidelity wireframes for certain things. But if you really need to understand like usability on a more, I think like a complex feature, I've found that having it be a higher fidelity, like more realistic, is easier for people to wrap their minds around. I think that testing on low fidelity, the rabbit hole you can fall down is people don't really understand what low fidelity means. If you're not a designer, it's hard. They can't really see past like the visual imperfections rather than answering questions about like what you're trying to learn about. So I found that like eliminating more of that up front has gotten me better testing results. And by better, I mean like I've learned more from them and gotten more useful feedback. Not necessarily always like, oh yeah, this is perfect, but I learned more of like, oh, like I wouldn't have thought that this is how they would want to use that product, but because it was realistic, it really changed like my designs to get that feedback. I don't know if that answers the question, but
like, yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, it's nice. It's better to the higher fidelity, the more realistic it will seem to the end user, especially if they don't understand wireframes and especially the demographic. Maybe it's an older demographic, or it might be really challenging for them to play pretend, or like imagine this is a picture. Imagine this is not this, and explain what lorem ipsum it means, even, and things like that. So the more realistic, the better. And I think that you did talk about some of the research you've already done, Jill. I don't know if Tazi were there, but talking about some of the competitive analysis and looking at how maybe the gaps in that competitive analysis that you had done. Now this is obviously a quick project, so you didn't have time to do all the user testing. You used yourself and made some assumptions up, and kind of it's like more like lean UX methodology, just like moving quickly and then testing once it's designed in higher fidelity stages, and really working off assumptions and hypotheses and kind of like moving quickly through that type of methodology as well. So yeah, I think it just depends on the project and the company and the dynamic, and is it agile, and all these different things that can kind of depict the methods and the research. Also, you've been talking a lot about this, Jill, and we have a question. What is masking? You've been doing the masking. What is masking?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So it's basically when you just take a shape. Can I what? Yeah, no, that's it. I wanted to just unmask it, but I actually don't know how to unmask things. There must be a way.
I think you did it. I think you
because I could just read.
You want to move it all to the right. And then
okay, I'll just do it again. I got rid of the mask. Okay. So basically what it is like right now I have an image, right? This is just a screenshot that I took from Google just to get the info to use. But also we have this logo, and I was thinking, okay, like I will put this logo on our screen here just to give it a little bit more like branding for that company. And what masking is you can use like any shape, but I'm using a circle in this case. So I use the ellipse shortcut, just hit E and then drag out a circle. I, in this case, actually happened to do exactly 64 by 64, which is what I wanted. And then I take that circle, and I think I can even, if I do like no fill, that might help. But I've just been guessing the whole time on if it was lined up. But you kind of put what you want to be your final image in the circle, and then select both objects. And then the shortcut for masking is Shift Command M, but you can also, I believe, yeah, you can just right click and you can manually select it here as well until you know the shortcut, and just do mask with shape. And then it does that. It masks your image with the shape that you selected. So you could do that with a rectangle, square, whatever shape
Very
you need.
handy.
Yeah. And it's a nice way to quickly like format images roughly how you want them for your prototype without going into like a Photoshop or something and really actually cropping your photos. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for asking these questions in the chat, guys. We're here to help you, to talk things through, to show you all the things. So utilize us. Also, we've got about 5 more minutes till we do artist spotlight. We are going to give props to a designer in the community in just 5 minutes. Again, if you're interested in getting into or nominating yourself for the artist spotlight or someone else, go ahead and just click on artist spotlight, that tab on Behance, and fill out the little form there.
Okay. These buttons are like floating a little bit in space, but I'm gonna just drag them here for now. You can see we have a little bit extra white space. We could do a bunch of things with that. Like we could throw a map on here, but I'm happy with how this is for the moment, I think. Oops, sorry, zoom out a little. Yeah, I don't think I want to do that. I think that adding a map at this point would be kind of like a lot of visual stuff happening on one screen with the logo, the image. Doing a map that like expanded could be cool, but I'll save that for a different element. Okay. I'm going to, we have a few minutes, right? Because I will start prototyping if that's the case. Okay. So prototyping. And we can always add more screens if we want to, but I want to make sure that I can show at least a couple things on this because prototyping in XD is super cool. And like pretty low effort to get cool results. So I'm gonna make this, I'm gonna do it specifically to this icon. We could also just link the whole screen because we're not going to be using other parts of the screen for to link to anything else, but we'll link that to our first screen. I don't really need this to do anything fancy at this point, although maybe we want to, like we can make the logo like fade in a little bit, but I would need to create another screen. Hold on. Because that way I can show how you can do a quick, like not a fancy animation by any means, but a quick like low effort for sure animation with prototyping. And to do that, I'm gonna set this to 0%. I'm gonna link. I'm gonna take the specific icon. That don't really want it to dissolve. I just kind of want it to open. I think that will do that. And then from here, I want to set this screen to a timer. I don't animate too often right now, so we might have to do a little playing around with the timing on this. I'm like, is 0.3 seconds a long time? It's not really, but in animation time, it kind of is. Auto animate. because we want XD to do all the hard work for us, figuring out what the difference between this screen and this screen is. And then that's good. Destination is this screen. Sure. Okay. So if we play this, yeah, that was a little faster than I wanted it to be, but you can kind of see what it did there. Let me go in and slow that down a little bit.
Yeah, and then when you finish that up, we'll move into the artist spotlight. Great seeing like a little animation already within a few minutes.
yeah, we'll come back to it. It's all good. Okay.
So let me share my screen with you guys. Let's look at Taboka Mazura's Behance. Super excited about this one.
Nice.
Designer from the UK, London, and she is doing all types of like various mediums of design, which I'm going to show a couple and we'll chat about it. First one here, I thought that was super cool and interesting here is Ghazi menstrual cups. So she is, she has these menstrual, I'm not sure, I think she's the one designing them as well as creating the app. And I also like just the styling here. It feels very natural and feels already like very enticing to me as a female, like all natural. She has some colors, a mood board here. And she even puts here the brand vibes: bold, clean, natural, informative, unapologetic, which I like. I'm like, ooh, unapologetic, feminine, neutral, self-care. And I feel that like when I'm looking at this, I'm like, oh, she did really good job with giving you those brand vibes. I'm feeling it. What do you think, Jill?
Yeah, I really like her color palette a lot. Even like you can see it works really nicely as gradients. Because they're like fun colors, but it still feels like she has a natural color palette, which I think is hard to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's cool.
And then she has sketches here of the actual products, of the actual menstrual cups. So it's like, wow, showing, I believe, I'm wondering if these are real. Like, is this a real thing? Can we buy from this? She even has this like gif of like, I believe the actual product and how it like captures liquid.
Yeah.
And she has a desktop view here, what it looks like, and then mobile as well. It's really like classy, I think.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Even like some video.
Huh. Yeah. Really, really beautiful design. So great job.
Yeah.
And then let's look at, she also did product packaging here. So here we have this moisturizer, this like quick design challenge that she did, and has all these different sort of mock-ups for it. But I think it's kind of cool. Like this, just it already looks like it's used or something. Like it's kind of edgy. It feels.
Yeah. Wow. Lots of mocks. That's very cool. So she created this bottle. It's not, right? Is this like, it's totally a mock-up? It looks so realistic. That's why I'm like, is this like,
is this real?
Yeah, is it real? That's really cool.
Yeah, really awesome. And then she's got just also more like another case study here with an app here. So this was in Figma and XD. She did UI UX and has like a little bit of information on her, the challenge that she had to overcome, the research. She shows even some of the survey results here based on 34 responses. She's got her personas defined, which it's nice because it's not too much information when she's showcasing her personas. As well as showing her design process, going from sketching to wireframes, then displaying the actual high fidelity, which is, I like these like showing them in the screens here in these little mock-ups. And she has a video too, so you can kind of see it in action. I think what she's working on here is redesigning WhatsApp and displaying more of the stories for WhatsApp. So she did research on like, do people care to look at stories? How much emphasis should we have within the WhatsApp app? So I think that's really cool. And I like the colors and the style. It makes the WhatsApp look just much more cooler than what I think it looks like now. What do you think, Jill?
Yeah, I like that she really built out a case study for this project. That's what stands out to me compared to like the first two we looked at are very nice also. But for all of you out there, we touched on this a little bit yesterday, but building out a UX portfolio, it's really helpful and will help you in job hunting also to have these like built out case studies where people can see your process, not just your final product, because I think like the journey of how you get to your final design is just as, if not more important than like what the final design is. Because like how we think and how we communicate as designers is so important.
Yeah, totally.
So I like that.
Yeah, she's got tons of work here, like showing all kinds of skills with UI, UX, product design, actual physical products design. So yeah, much props. I'm sure everyone in the chat is snapping their fingers for you to I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, but I believe Taboka Mazura. You guys should follow her. You guys should also follow, I'm going to do it right now. Boom. You guys should also be following Jill. If you haven't already, check out her Behance as well. She's got tons of great work that you can check out there too. All right, let's go back to you, Jill.
Okay.
I feel like a weather forecaster.
Okay, and we're back. So let's see, I switched this to 1 second. That might be too long, but I'm gonna do a quick test right now. Yeah, that feels better. I think I don't want it to be too drawn out, but that way you can at least see, okay, this is how I prototype every single screen. I kind of go in and I'm like, did that do exactly what I wanted it to do? I kind of take it one transition at a time. But for this, we're gonna like click our icon and then cool, that's our splash screen. So it opens that. We'll go back to prototyping here. Now this, I think we just need it to also wait for a minute. But I guess it can auto animate, right? Because it'll figure out the difference. Usually I think of auto animate for like doing fancy transitions, but in this case it would just fade. But I don't know if the timing will be good with that. Just a little jump. I think it's because it's going from strict purple to white.
Excuse me.
I'm gonna just do this for the sake of.
I feel like timing is always a challenge with animations, like not too slow, not too fast. You kind of have to like feel it out exactly, play around with a bunch of options.
Yes. Yeah. I think if you do this like timing stuff often enough, then you kind of have a better idea. But I don't do a lot of timed animations on my day-to-day currently. So that's what we'll have to do a little I guess, work there. But we're going to just I didn't create a login screen. Maybe we want to do that just to give it a little bit more of a realistic feel. I tried to capture all the screens we would need on that first attempt, but we inevitably might need to create a couple more quick ones. I don't need that much room, but I want to do this. So we have update the text style here to be like filled in, which makes me realize like we might not want this to be enabled until they fill out the login. We can do that. Okay. I'll just make it my name. My text wasn't. Should I do like maybe a few more? A long password. Yeah, I found that websites now mostly require like at least 8 or 10 characters these days. So do that for being more realistic. Okay, so we got that, fill it in. We can go to login. Okay, we'll go back to prototyping. See how far we get before I realize we're missing something else. This, I'm just gonna make that you can click. I guess I'll do specifically this button. Oh no, I'm not gonna do that. We're doing the forms. So I'll just make that you can click the whole screen and simulate filling out the form. And then we don't want that to be time. I'm gonna do most of this on tapping. I don't want it to dissolve. Then we'll do login. And then the first thing will be adding a pet. These screens simulate adding an image here. So I'm going to do it specifically to that element.
And here's where you kind of have like that the access camera pop up here. Do you have any recommendations or best practices around like when to display these types of system notifications?
Yeah. You mean like in regards to including them in the mocks or not?
Well, I guess because like some apps will have them right when you sign up. And then in this context, you're using it when you're about to take that action, like adding an image. So there's kind of like, you're showing it more or displaying it more in context. Is that kind of something that you're intentionally doing, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think so. Because I always, at least as a user, I mean, I'm sure you should test this. Don't just like go on my assumption, but as a user, if I don't know exactly what the app needs that permission for, I'm less inclined to give an app like permission to like my photos or whatever it is, because I don't yet understand like what they even need that for. So in this case, I'm like, well, at least they will understand, hopefully, that we're asking that because you're going to add a photo, and we can't let you add a photo unless you agree to that piece of it.
Yeah, I think that's a good best practice, is like to not bombard people when they're on, you're onboarding them, asking all their information and give me this permission to this and that, and your cameras and your notifications all at once. I think it's good to do it in context of the use there. So I think that's why it could be also important to display those screens as you're prototyping for that reason.
Yes, I think so too, because if there is an issue with understanding, like, or maybe you put this screen in a spot and people are like, oh, I don't want to give permission for that because I don't understand why you need those permissions. At least you would find that out in testing. So I think it's always a good idea to include it. because you're gonna have to include it somewhere. So you may as well test where it's getting included. Okay, photo album. This is a screen grab, so I am just going to do, actually, I kind of want to play around with, I think we can get this to animate up. I believe that's what it does in iOS, is that when you click photo album, this would pop up from the bottom of the screen. And I personally would just, I think I would just put this same element so that it has, let me check if it has the same name, because if you're doing auto animate, it's really important that the objects that you're animating from one screen to the next are named exactly the same, because that's how XD figures out what to move. So, okay. Yeah, so this is called group 11 and this is group 1. So I think if I name this group 1, it should be all right, but it needs to be on this artboard a little bit. I'm just gonna like cheat here and make it like the least amount on the artboard as possible. So like you can barely see that it's there, but it's there just waiting. And then we'll see if I go to prototyping, this link, what did I tell it to do? I told it to tap transition. We want to do auto animate. I'm not really sure what timing will work well for this. I'm going to leave it at 1 second. That might be really slow, but at least you'll be able to hopefully see it work. Okay, so if we say agree here, yep. And then if I do photo album, okay, yeah, really slow, but you can see what it did. So we'll go in and we'll like adjust that timing, but that gives you kind of like a nice, if you're doing testing with this with end users, I think it's a nice touch to just make it feel more realistic. So 0.3, maybe do another quick test here. Okay, I'm happy with that. It's probably not exact, maybe even 0.2, but that's close enough. It's better than the 1 second for sure. Can you imagine if all of the transitions on iOS were that slow? You'd just be like, do I really want to click this button? Like, it's a big commitment at that point. Now in this, I think once we select a photo, I think it would probably exit the same way that it came back in. Someone in chat can correct me if that's wrong, but I think that's, I'm like, I should have studied the iOS pattern and it's a little closer, but let's assume that it also eases out the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, you're limited on time, but best practice, yeah, look at what other people are doing and you can kind of get a feel for timing and everything.
Yeah, for sure.
You could also turn the opacity or the appearance all the way off too for those. And
yeah,
the same.
Okay, because I was thinking that then it would also transition the opacity, right? And I didn't know if I wanted it to like fade up and also in at the same time. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it would hide it on this screen like... better, for sure. No, you're probably right, but
I guess it just depends on how quick.
Yeah, for sure. I see what you mean though. I wouldn't have thought of that. I was just, I'm like, oh, it's just one like tiny pixel at the bottom, but definitely
right on the edge.
Just on the edge. Okay. Prototype. Okay, that's roughly correct, hopefully. And then on this, we want, then you have your photo that fills in. We have, I'm going to just make it the whole screen for the sake of time. You fill in your form, tap. just going to do regular transition on that. And then you would end up in your home screen. And we already have the scrolling set up on these. I don't want it dissolving, I just noticed. Yeah. I'm just gonna do none for these. Tap, tap. Okay. So now we're here. We have our scrolling set up on these screens already. To get from this screen to this screen, you would click down on this bar. I'm just going to do the whole bar. You'd want specifically this, but for the sake of time and then easily clicking through it later, I'll just do the bar. And boarding. Almost there, last screen. And then the top one for this.
Yeah, it's amazing how fast you can kind of do the prototyping.
Yeah, I'm like, hopefully I didn't miss anything in there. We'll click through it and see if anything looks extremely funky, but that's roughly what I had in mind. I can show one more thing if we have time, but let's see if we can get through this. Okay, that was a little slow, but you fill it in, log in, agree. That comes in, you pick something. I noticed that didn't do the animate out for this, so that tells me this must not be named right. I am correct. It's like, that's the problem every time for me. I think, is there a setting? There must be to, when you copy something like that it maintains the name, or it always automatically renames. Maybe we don't know this off the top of our heads, but I feel like that might be.
From my experience, if you copy it and then you select the other next artboard and then you paste it in there, versus copying from one artboard directly to another artboard, that it typically works. If I copy and then I select the pasteboard paste, it typically does, but not 100% all the time. So I don't know. I don't know the logic.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. That's still helpful though. Okay. Just checking to see if this is.
Yeah, we've got just about 3 more minutes, which I think you have like perfect timing for.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, I'll try to click through these, see if we can get it this time. Select the photo.
Yay!
There he is. Fill out the form, save that, and then you're on your home screen. Home screen scrolls, which is a nice touch, I think. And then from here, we can hop over to the services tab. See that updates. I think, yep, this scrolls as well. It seems like my layers are in the correct order, so nothing weird happening. That's good. And then boarding. You get your list of boarding. With more time, we could have done some like search mockup, but you can also use the keyboard component that's already built for iOS to quickly mock that up, have the keyboard appear, and do like a mock for search if you needed to. We have our back button also that appeared now that we're farther in. I could link the back to go back to the other screen. And then the last screen. So we made it all the way down into a specific business. And I think that's where we ended there. Yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
So exciting to see it all wrapped up now in a bow with the prototyping.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can, I'm sure even Chad is aware, you can go pretty crazy with the prototyping. Like I could get into things like doing this backlink and having it go back to the services tab and making it so that you can really click around in the prototype and get a realistic feel for what you're working on. And same with this, we can go back, we can link this here, transition. I'm just going through the settings here. I always have to make sure that animation is on none, because I feel like if you do that and then it like dissolves on you or something, you're like, that's not how iOS works. Okay, cool. So now we have like boarding, click in, go back, and you can just do that forever and ever and ever. But yeah, I like adding those details in. Even on this, like if we can link specific, these aren't called tabs, but in this menu down here, we could link each one. So you could toggle back and forth, etc. But we're almost out of time. Yeah. But thank you to like everyone in chat for asking all these questions and spending 1 to 2 days watching me design this app. It's been really fun. I haven't gotten to use neon purple in a design in a long time, I can tell you that much. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it looks so great. And you did such a good job with timing, like getting all the wireframes done yesterday for this pet parent app, and then prototyping it all today, putting all those final touches in. It looks really good. Thank you so much for sharing that, Jill. And thank you guys all for being, again, yeah, like Jill said, in the chat, connecting, giving advice. It's been really great. We've been enjoying the last few days with you guys. And don't leave. Stay tuned. We've got the XD Daily Creative Challenge replay coming up next following this stream. And also Adobe Live will be back tomorrow at 8 a.m. with the Adobe Font Show. You're going to learn about lettering and spacing and even have a real life lettering project. All right. So good to see you guys. Hope to see you soon. All the best. Bye.